All right, honey, where are we at?
We're at the Pompeii ruins site. We're going to check out the things that happened a long time ago here in Pompeii. It's going to be amazing.
So one of the things in marriage is learning how to listen to each other, because not both of you are going to be right.
Yeah, and I'm just going to give you a news flash. Listening to each other is not going to be always fun.
No, it's not. It's going to be really hard.
But it'll be worth it.
Yes. And a lot of times we don't want to listen to each other because we normally think we are right.
Are you trying to say I'm wrong sometime?
All the time.
See?
Yes, it takes us to have a humbling spirit to be able to listen to one another.
Yeah. So, just graduated with my PhD in that.
So we're both still learning, absolutely, because we always want to be a lifetime of learners.
Right. Let's call it a disciple. Disciple is a learner. To be a disciple in your marriage, come on. That just came to me right now.
Discipling in your marriage?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, because you're constantly learning, therefore you also need to be teachable.
Exactly. What you knew about your spouse when you got married is going to be different years later, because we go through seasons, we change, and so who we are becomes different as well.
Yes. And so you should constantly be learning to grow as to how can I continue to learn about my spouse, because they are different from 10 years ago.
Right. And you know what? You'll hear people say this. I feel like I'm married to a stranger. Guess what you are? They've changed. So keep learning them so they won't be a stranger.
Yes. I like that. Well, I feel like it's even the concept of they're always going to be a stranger, so because we constantly change. And if that's the case, it's okay, right? That's the way God made it to be. But allowing yourself to not get stuck in that of thinking that you already know who they are.
Very good. Good advice.
Oh, I think you liked your hat.
Oh, really?
He was pointing at your hat.
Cowboys.
Yes. Okay. So what brought us to that too was that I had asked my husband to look at the map. And a lot of times we don't want to do what we're being asked to do. And
No, wait. She said look at the map, and I said let's just go to stuff we want to see, then we'll look and see where it is on the map.
right. And sometimes when my husband talks, he doesn't make it very clear of what's going on in his head.
But then she said, okay, either hold the map or hold the camera. So I decided I'd hold the camera to kind of take me off the whole map thing.
Yes. And I'm always willing to pivot. So
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
You gotta be okay.
She is not always willing to pivot. She's pivoting now. We'll just give her some credit for that.
We are coming to one of our sites.
That's gonna give our audience, it's kind of cool where we are. The large theater was among the first public buildings on Earth during the excavation of the 18th century. Its construction probably dates back to the mid-2nd century BC and was built by utilizing the natural slope of a hillside, thereby avoiding the need for artificial stone substructures. The staircase was divided into 3 segments by means of circular corridors.
So in marriage, you want to be flexible, right? That's all what pivoting is being able to do the things that might not be required of you, that there's no expectation in your mind. Sometimes we have an expectation of how roles or how people should be, but yet we should always be flexible in your marriage.
Yeah, that means willing to change, even though you've normally been doing it this way. It may be time to do it that way. Being open to change and being flexible helps create continuity as you have a willingness to compromise.
Yes, and sometimes that can be hard because change can be difficult in our mind because a lot of times we don't like to change.
Yep. There's a saying, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. I'm not calling your dog or old, but we all know the saying, and sometimes we can get complacent in something we've done for such a long time and have an unwillingness to be flexible so that we can change.
Which just means we've gotten too complacent, right?
Yeah.
There's complacency, which means we become lazy in our mind to not do the best thing that God has for us.
Yeah, and flexibility creates fluidity. Because when you're not willing to be flexible, it means you're going to be rigid. And we all know things get rigid, it gets stuck, it gets out of shape, it's not good. No one wants to be rigid, right? But you want to be called rigid? No. You want to be like, I'm flexible. I work out.
And flexibility really is resiliency, if you think about it, because then you're being able to be proactive rather than being reactive to life circumstances and people and things.
This made me think of the Apostle Paul, who decided to be flexible. He says, I'll be all things to all people that I might win some. And so he was saying, I know I normally do things this way, but I wanted to share the gospel so diligently with people that I'm willing to be flexible. I'm willing to actually acquiesce a little bit to where I can get their attention and share the gospel with them.
Yeah, and when I even hear you say that, it makes me think about how we need to first show that in our marriage.
Yes.
So how can you win people over if you're not even wanting to win over your spouse?
That's such a good point. Because again, we will try to do things well outside of the home versus inside of the home. Because there's too much trouble in the home, so you don't even want to deal with that mess. It's easy to go tackle something outside because it's a lot easier. But what would it look like if you chose to make your home a beautiful sanctuary by being flexible and willing to do whatever it takes so that you could have harmony in your marriage?
Yes, well, that would require work that we all don't want.
Right.
But do you know what? You come with such a reward at the very end with it. God has spiritual rewards for us.
Yeah. It actually births a fruit of righteousness is what happens. That when you look at your marriage and you go, there's no way this could be fixed. We've just been so rigid for so long. This is the way we've always done it. So I always do this, she always does that. And there's just no hope for us. Well, I want you to know that's a lie. That there is hope for you, and it may just be a willingness to be flexible. Not focus on being right, but focus on what can I do to cultivate the change that's probably needed in my marriage. And what better way that you could do that than being flexible?
And trying to win over your spouse by your own conduct, by your own words, by your own behaviors of doing the best thing that we can do, which is thinking about how would Jesus respond in this situation, in this circumstance? How can I show my spouse Jesus?
Yep. And part of the difficulties with that is holding on to things that you probably should have let go. Failures, what they did to you, what they said to you. Last time when this happened, you can't let that go. And so it's hard to grab hold of something new if you're not willing to release what's old, especially if what's old has already hurt your marriage.
Yes, so we hope this encourages you to think about ways that you are willing to pivot. One small change and one small way that you're willing to do something different in order to say, I am a child of God and I want to show Jesus.
Yeah, sounds good, honey. Take care.